Okay, good morning. Greatest Torah because it brings healing to everybody, to all of life. Who needs a healing?
Baruch Benjamin Ben Rechablima. Let's see, could you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yehudis Go to Basalis Hana, Haim Yaakov Zeb Ben Sarah, Yosef Yitzhak Ben Lior, Shoshana Bas Hana, Gary Roberts Son of George, Yaakov Shaul Ben Hana Miriam, Yehudis Gila Bas Rachalea, Hinda Yehudis Bas Keli.
For Shlema L'Korah.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
And I say, America needs healing.
Oh, gosh.
Amen.
Refuah Shlema, Geula Shlema.
Amen.
And Rav Yitzhak Feivish Ben Braina Malka. Refuah Shlema. All right. Gotcha, you must have your pulse on the early voting, huh? Oh, no. Election day in America,
At least,
Hayom Yom in the Torah.
at least I live in Florida, so.
Right. All right, here we go. Let's see if this has any relevance, open relevance to Election Day. Torah study every day is crucial to life itself. This applies not only to the soul of the one studying, but also to the souls of his family. For then, through Torah study, the atmosphere of the home becomes an atmosphere of Torah and piety. Piety is Yira Shemayim, the fear of God, the given overness to Hashem, and that spreads. Well, that would be nice, right? If that spread entire the nation, if we return to one nation under God. Lessons in Tanya. Continuing, although we're going to see in a rather, I'll call it oblique way, the topic of how godliness can invest itself and does invest itself in the klippas, right? What we call the sita achra, the other side, as well as in where you would expect in Kedusha. And he's going to speak about that phenomenon of God invested in the klippas and God invested in the side of Kedusha from the perspective of the Torah itself. And just a little introduction. Today's Tanya is entirely a quote from the Zohar. So we'll be translating Aramaic. And it distinguishes the Zohar between two facets of the Torah. The Eitz HaChaim, right? That's actually the title of a book of Kabbalah, Eitz HaChaim, versus the Tree of Life, versus the Eitz HaToivera, the Tree of Good and Evil. And the Zohar, as we will see, equates Tree of Life with the study of Kabbalah, the secrets of the Torah, and Tree of Good and Evil, the written Torah, particularly the Mishnah and the laws, because the Mishnah and all of the rulings have to do, what are the rulings about, what's good and what's not good, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So we will start there. Did I give you the page? I'm not sure if I gave it. The actual starts on page 115 in this little book. And in Kutei Morim, it's here on page, it's a new letter, letter 26 on page Kuf Mem Beis. Now, as I said, today, the entirety of today's Tanya is the piece in the Zohar written in Aramaic. And then tomorrow begins the explanation. So today, I guess what I'd want to encourage us to is just listen. If you don't understand what you're hearing, of course, ask a question. But the length and breadth of the explanation will be forthcoming tomorrow and the days after tomorrow. Okay. This is letter 26. B'raya Mehem. Raya Mehemna is a particular portion of the Zohar. And when the Zohar is explaining Parshas Nosei, Parsha in the Torah from Nosei, so the Zohar brings a verse from Daniel and translated into Aramaic. And the verse says, "V'hamaskilim yazhiru Zohar rakia." Those who are maskilim, whose minds are well developed, from Lashon Seichel, yazhiru, they will shine, Zohar rakia, like the shine in the heavens, nechai habura delach, in this group of yours. Now, this is the Zohar speaks in various languages. This part of the Zohar, a lot of the Zohar, is a dialogue between two friends, the Chaverim. Okay, so the Zohar is talking, and as if it's talking, the voice is as if it's talking to someone else, to his chaver. And the Zohar says, "B'hai chabura delach." What is this? This light of the heaven? This light of the heaven is this book of yours, meaning the Zohar itself. Ye'ihu Sefer HaZohar, as the Zohar says about itself, that this light of the heavens is the Sefer HaZohar. It is the book of the Zohar. Means Zahar de'ema Elah, and it comes from, why is it called Zohar? Zohar means light. It comes from the light of Ema Elah, of the supernal mother, which is Bina, which he calls Tshuva. And why is Bina called Tshuva? Because in the structure of the Spheros, the Spheros themselves are individual shinings. Sphera from Lashon Saphir, to shine. And we have Chochmah is a condensation of a certain quality of light. Bina is a concentration of a certain kind of light. And in the language of Kabbalah, Chochmah is the father, Bina is the mother. And when the two get together, when Bina is restored to Chochmah, because Bina comes out of Chochmah, that's called Shuva. And that's associated with Geula. Geula is when what's separated becomes reunified with its whole. So in the language of the Zohar, that Ema Allah, the supernal mother, when she returns to the father, and the relationship becomes intimate and one again, that's called Shuva. Be'ilin leit sorach nesuyin. Now, these Talmidei Chachamim who learn the Zohar, those who study the Zohar, that's Be'ilin, those who study the Zohar, leit sorach nesuyin, they don't need any punishment, not punishment, trials and tribulations. They don't need any trials and tribulations. Begin to asirin Yisrael letam elon dechai, because the tree of life is associated with the redemption, with the darkening and moving away, and ultimately the destruction of all darkness and evil and light. Because in the future, so they don't need any more of this kind of transformation of the negative to the positive, because Dasidin in the future, Yisrael, meaning in the redemption, in the state of redemption, in the future, Yisrael lematam me'elone dechai, the Jewish people will taste of the tree of life. So the Zohar is putting on the table a distinction between that part of the Zohar, of the Torah, which is called the tree of life, which is Kabbalah and what derives from it, Chassidus, the Soidus, the secrets of the Torah, from the tree of good and evil, which is the mitzvahs, which explain what's good and what's not good, and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And in the future, he says the Jewish people will taste only from the tree of life. Diu Hai Sefer HaZohar, which is this book of the Zohar. Yifken Boy, they will be redeemed in it, in the Kabbalah, through the knowledge of the Kabbalah, and particularly through Sefer HaZohar. They will be redeemed mim galuta, from their exile. The Jewish people were redeemed from their exile through this book called the Zohar, which means shining, and it's from the Golus, berachamim, with great mercy. Yiskayim behem, and they will be fulfilled in them, in the Jewish people, what it says a pasuk in Daniel, Yehi bedod nachenu, that he will lead them alone, one and alone. All the diversity will experience the singularity of Hashem. The ein imoy El Kel Noiker, and there won't be with them any, they won't be with him. There will not be any accompaniment with God, any kind of strange other gods. Melonu the Tevera, and the tree, until that's the tree of life. That state of unity, return, shuva. Okay, Melonu the Tevera, the tree of good and evil, the Ihu Isir Reheter, which is the laws that have to do with what's forbidden and what's permissible, and which is Tuma V'Tahara, what's unclean and clean. Vayishaltu al Yisrael. In the future, that won't have any dominance in the life of the Jewish people. This is in this time of the redemption. It won't have any dominance, any rulership over the Jewish people, yater, anymore. The harpanosa de lehen, because the sustenance, the nourishment that the Jewish people will get from them, will only be from the tree of life. In other words, they will shine in the future this Sefer HaZohar, which means shining, which means light, and that's the only side which will shine. There won't be this struggle between good and evil anymore, but rather what will shine is only the Ilona Dachai, the tree of life. The Leis Tomen Lekashia, where there's no difficulties. Remember, the Mishnah and the Gemara is all about resolving what is the halacha. And it's full of argumentation, back and forth. But in the future, everything will be clear. Lo kashya misitu derag. There won't be any questions from the negative side. And there won't be any argumentation coming from the side of impurity. The Kasiv, as is written about the future in Zechariah, he writes, the spirit of uncleanliness I will cause to pass away from the earth. The Talmid Chachamim will no longer have to come on to the Amich HaOretz in order to get their Parnasa, because the Parnasa, Elamisitu de Taif, Parnasa will come only from the side of good, the Ochlin Tahara Pasha Eter, which is the side of purity and kosher as opposed to unkosher, and permitted as opposed to unpermitted. In other words, Kedusha will shine clear. And there'll be no need for the mixed multitude. I mean, here he means it literally, but also metaphorically. There won't be any mix-up anymore. There won't be any confusion in the time of the future about what's right, what's wrong, what you should do. It will be clear because Zohar, the light will shine. There won't be any force from the side of the dark side of Klippas that have to do with eating something that might be tuma or puzzle or isser or forbidden. Because he said, because in the time which we call the time of the tree of good and evil, when we do have to be careful about everything, because there is a klippa which needs to be cut through, broken through, so that the truth can be revealed. Because in the time of the tree of good and evil, sholta, the negative is predominant and needs to be. This is the whole avoida birurim. We have to rectify those things. And in the chachamim, the damim l'shabasa. So the wise people of the tzaddikim of these generations before the Geula are compared to Shabbos, right? A tzaddik is compared to Shabbos because Shabbos kula Hashem, right? That's the description of Shabbos. It's all to Hashem. But tzaddikim are compared then to Shabbos and Yom Tov. And in Shabbos and Yom Tov, what do? You take from the mundane and you bring it into the holy. That's the way things are now. There is a mundane, and worse than that, there's a prohibited, and the Torah tells you how to deal with those. And then you make Shabbosim from staying away from them or dealing them and bringing those delightful permitted tastes to the Shabbos table. So in these days, the Tzaddikim are compared to Shabboses and Yom Tov, and Leis Lahen Elamad Yohavin Lahen in Hulin, and they only have what comes from the realm of Klippus Noga, that which is permissible but not yet holy. We have to make it, sanctify the Shabbos. We make the Shabbos holy. Pegavna the Yom HaShabbos, and that's like the day of Shabbos. Like in Shabbos, what you eat is what you bought in the weekdays. So in the time before the Geula, there is a difference between weekday and Shabbos. Tzaddikim compared to Shabbos, the Ameoris, the normal people compared to the weekday, and there's a bira, a transformation, a clarification that takes place. And at the time, contrasting the time of the predominance of the tree of good and evil with the time when the tree of life prevails, Iskafia ilonu de tevira, that when the tree of life prevails and the good and evil have all been mevara, they've all been rectified. Below yehei, turning the page. And it's reversed. The ordinary gets its life from Kedusha. Kedusha infuses the ordinary. And he says that in a Muslim, the ordinary people get their life from the Talmidei Chachamim. The Skafian Achtaihu, and the ordinary people are subjugated under the Talmidei Chachamim. Instead of the strong force being in the klippas, and we have to mavar them, the strong force is going to be in Kedusha, and the secondary will be the outside, the ordinary. So Iskafin Tachtaihu, the ordinary will be subjugated to Kedusha, as if it never existed. That will be the way things will be in the future. And this whole notion of prohibited and permitted, and tuma b'tahara, and what's tuma and the opposite, which tuma and pure, it won't, however, leave the ordinary people, which come from their side, which means the klippus noga side, because in terms of what the experience of an ordinary person will be, not sure who these ordinary people are, but in the time, even in they say in the time of the future, this is all, remember, this is just reading Zohar. In the time of the future, when Kedusha is more prominent, there still will be the ordinary, the light klippas, and therefore, because of that, leis ben geluta liyames hamashiach. Therefore, there won't be much difference to the ordinary people from the time of exile to the time of Mashiach. Eloshivid malchus bilvad. What will be the difference? The difference will be in terms of rulership. This is actually this idea that the only difference in the future will be shivud malchus. The rulership is actually something that's mentioned, that the Rambam mentions. Now, it sounds in a certain sense trivial. In other words, we'll have a ruler, a king, a president who represents Kedusha. And that itself, and well, it's interesting that it is election day, right? And a society in which the leadership of the society, the king of the society, represents Kedusha. So the ordinary people will receive from that, but they will not have been intrinsically changed. The only change will be, according to the Rambam and the Zohar, is using this, I guess, since the Rambam came later, one might have to say that he took this language from the Zohar, because this is the Zohar. There's no difference between the Golus and the time of Mashiach, except who rules, whether the ruler is a king of ordinary or whether the ruler is Melech HaMashiach. Because the ordinary folk will not have tasted from the tree of life. And they will still need the Mishnahs, which tell about what's Isser Heter, what's prohibited and what's permitted, Tuma B'tara, what's unclean and clean. Ad kan v'raya mehem. The Alter Rebbe says, until this point, I have quoted exactly from the Zohar. As I said, that puts it on the table. We can discuss what we just put on the table, but the explanation of it will follow tomorrow and the next day. So, first of all, any questions? Okay? So then we'll wait till tomorrow when we start the explanation of this. And in which case, Emir Hashem, we'll see each other tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.